Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Shana Tova. As I said at the beginning of services, this is Shabbat Shuvah, the Shabbat of turning. It's a special Shabbat between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. I've decided to overwhelm you with stories that hopefully have an accumulative effect. Story number one, in the summer of 2005, Steve Jobs, the founder and CEO of Apple Computers, delivered the graduation address at Stanford University. It was a speech about failure, and Jobs dropped out of college in his freshman year. He sat in a class in calligraphy and typography, and he liked it. He thought it was fun, and it turned out that the things he picked up came in handy when he designed the Macintosh computer with his friend Steve Wozniak some years later. Shortly after his 30th birthday, Jobs was fired from Apple. Jobs said of the experience, what had been the focus of my entire life was gone, and it was devastating. I was a very public failure. Over time, though, it became clear that the experience of such dramatic failure allowed him to reinvent himself in his work in a way that led to his greatest successes, buying and transforming Pixar, getting married, and returning to Apple rejuvenated. And the experience that could have and should have broken him, became for Steve Jobs the ticket to a lifetime of new inventions and success that have changed the world. Story number two. You may remember, I lose track because I'm old. Do you remember a Nike commercial some years ago with Michael Jordan recited the following script in front of a footage of his basketball failures? You don't remember that? You're all too young. So this is what it said. I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I have succeeded. A footnote to this story, Michael Jordan was cut from his high school varsity basketball team during his sophomore year. Story number three. There's going to be a lot of stories, so this is what's going to happen. I'm going to make a point, or I'm going to bore all of you to death. Hopefully it'll happen simultaneously. Story number three. Thomas Watson was the legendary head of IBM in the early days of computing. One of IBM's employees had made a bad decision which cost the company $12 million. Eventually, he was summoned to see the boss. You have the right to fire me, Mr. Watson. I made a mistake, and it was a bad one. Fire you, said Watson. We've just spent $12 million educating you. Some shorter stories. George Bernard Shaw, who wrote 5 novels, each of which was turned down by every publisher. Van Gogh, who in his lifetime sold only one of his 1,700 paintings, even though his brother Theo was an art dealer. David Hume, the great British philosopher, published a treatise of human nature. People read it when you were in college. And he said it fell stillborn from the press. J.K. Rowling's first Harry Potter book was rejected 12 times. She later anonymously wrote more novels that continued to receive rejection letters, which she posed on Twitter. And as of April 2024, her estimated worth is $1 billion, making her one of the wealthiest authors in history. I'm going to keep going. Albert Einstein had severe speech problems as a child and could not speak fluently until the age of 9. He was later awarded the Nobel Prize in 1921 and 1922. Milton Hershey started 3 companies that failed before he founded Hershey's with a vision that milk chocolate could be in every household in the U.S. You know how that story ended. This one I didn't know when I was, okay. Elizabeth Blackwell was, in 1847, rejected from 29 medical schools before she was finally accepted, she became the first woman in the United States to earn a medical degree. Walt Disney's first animation studio went bankrupt before he later went on to create the world-renowned multinational entertainment media conglomerate. Now let's get to people who are important. Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga was dropped. Did you know that? Do you know this? Okay. Lady Gaga was dropped from Def Jam record artist roster after 3 months. To date, she's won 12 Grammys, an Academy Award, and 2 Golden Globe Awards. Thomas Edison was thought to be dumb as a child and was told by teachers he'd never succeed because he had trouble focusing during class. He went on to invent the phonograph, the motion picture camera, and early versions of the electric light bulb, although I read an article that some of that isn't true, okay? But since it fits into my story, I'm going to use it. And I shouldn't tell you things that are going to undermine what I'm giving you, but okay. Okay. Steven Spielberg I didn't know this. Steven Spielberg was rejected both of the times he applied to attend film school at the University of Southern California. Vera Wang failed as a figure skater before deciding to pursue a new venture in wedding dress design. In 2018, Forbes named her the 38th among America's wealthiest self-made women. I'm not done yet. Fred Astaire was told by an executive during his first screen test, can't sing, can't act, balding, can dance a little. He's considered one of the greatest dancers in film history. Some very, very, do you think he had a good voice?
I do, yes.
Because people said, okay, you know better than I do. Okay, here are some very, very, very short stories. John Grisham's first book, A Time to Kill, was rejected 28 times. Henry Ford's first 2 automobile companies failed. Oprah Winfrey was fired from an early job as a television news anchor, I think in Baltimore. Jerry Seinfeld was booed off stage at his first stand-up comedy appearance. This is something close to my heart. Sir James Dyson suffered through 5,126 failed prototypes before he landed on the first working Dyson vacuum that are ridiculously expensive. And Jane and I, for some crazy reason, have 2 of them. I'm not going to tell you why. We have one from upstairs and one for downstairs. Okay. It's embarrassing. Okay, Elvis Presley was fired from the Grand Ole Opry and was told to go back to truck driving. Now, this is weird. Colonel Harlan Sanders of Kentucky Fried Chicken fame was rejected over 1,000 times before finding a franchise partner. Okay, I'm done with the stories. Could you repeat back all of them to me, please? What characterizes all of them is they failed. And then they took one step forward and moved on. Yom Kippur, which was coming in a week, is our holy day of failure. That's what it is. I have here a machzor that I sometimes refer to. And I started going through the Al-Chet prayers, and they're failure prayer. It's a failure prayer. And I try to make it work, and I started filling in some of these. We have failed, okay, we have failed against you in idle chatter. We have failed against you by the way we talk. We have failed against you by scorning parents and teachers. We have failed against you through foul speech. We have failed against you through foolish talk. So I'm not saying that sin and failure are exactly the same, but it's really the same idea. On Yom Kippur, we kind of recognize, we kind of list our failures, we reflect upon our own failures. And what is the failure? The failure is to live up to our highest standards, compromising who we are. We could argue that this list is depressing, but here's Judaism's wisdom. And I think as we prepare for the high holidays and prepare for Yom Kippur, I think this is Judaism's great wisdom when it comes to this kind of reflection, and that is a person is given a choice in life. In other words, if you confront failure, one of the ways of dealing with it is you choose to hide from it. Our shame leads to a cover-up so that no one else will see it. We live in denial of it. We lie to ourselves, and the results are destructive stagnation, hopelessness, mediocrity, and an inability to move forward and to grow. And a second choice is to openly acknowledge it, accepting the failure, and that's the foundation of tshuva, of repentance. There is no repentance unless we acknowledge our failures and to find a way to transform them into something positive. We accept our failures with faith that we can do better. Perhaps failure now, but not doubting that there is life after current failure and we can move forward. So Judaism teaches us that when we recognize our failures and admit them, incredible things can happen. And I just want to end with a beautiful summary of what we do with failure that was offered in Rabbi Jonathan Sacks' book called Lessons in Leadership, page 69, if you have the book and want to look at it. He says, "The great human beings are not those who never fail. They are those who survive failure, who keep on going, who refuse to be defeated, who never give up or give in. They keep trying. They learn from every mistake. They treat failure as a learning experience. And from every refusal to be defeated, they become stronger, wiser, and more determined." Let's make that part of our lives. Shabbat Shalom.